Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Accuracy in America. I am your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you are out of the snowcrete.
Yeah, I love that term, actually.
Yeah, but it's what, so, people don't live here. So we got about, 7 or 8 inches of snow 2 weeks ago or so. And ever since then, it's been above freezing about 4 hours total. The longest stretch below freezing here since 1989. And so, the snow is like concrete. And my poor daughter this is her first time driving through a snow season, and she keeps hitting snowbanks and put little bumps on her car. So, but it's snow, and it looks like you think of snow looking, but it's ice, and it's blocks of ice, every bit as hard and non-negotiable as the ice in your freezer. So and it's not moving, and we're about to go through another cold snap. Although my understanding is after Sunday, it won't be that cold again this winter. That Sunday we kind of bottom out and start heading back up the hill. So
that'll be
we
good.
got that going for us.
So MK didn't have a beater before the snowstorm. She does now.
She does now. Big beater is good for her. She's learning by doing. Sorry, Virginia.
Yeah, no, it's rough out there. I mean,
It is.
Because of this snow and ice kind of combination, because of the snowcrete, as you referred to earlier, we still have a lot of blocked or disappearing lanes.
Right.
If
you like the schools, they're going back. I don't know what they're doing in Montgomery. Here they're going back 2 hours late now.
Right.
So, and the reason is the places where the kids stand to wait for the buses are covered in this snowcrete. So like the kid, you'll have 15 kids, 20 kids standing out in the middle of the street waiting on a bus. So to avoid that, they don't start school till 2 hours later, let all the morning commuters and let it get to be daylight, right? Some of these kids are still getting picked up in pitch dark, right?
Yeah.
Especially, I think middle school goes first now. I see those guys, they're lumbering out. It's not pre-dawn yet. It's still dark as night. So,
yeah, I mean, the school bus comes into our neighborhood to pick up the kids, so that's good. But that doesn't happen everywhere because Montgomery County is pretty vast, just like a lot of the areas. It's just you have a lot of different scenarios there,
right?
And yeah, so they're still struggling with that. I think the county, I mean, besides the fact that they're opening 2 hours late, they've also said that they kind of tried to apologize, saying that some bus stops, the kids just won't get picked up because
the other thing that comes up here in this is, a lot of the DC area, you've grafted a modern transportation system onto a 300-year-old road network, right? So a lot of these places, they're 300-year-old roads, and they've been, they're paved and whatnot. But they're thin, and there's nothing on either side, and it's dangerous. And so it takes them a while to get it. And we're not upstate New York where it happens every year, and you can, put the money up front to pay for it all. Like we have years we don't have any snow, so it's we should not be piling up mounds and mounds of snow removal equipment. We have some, and we probably could stand to have a little more, but that's not a business we need to be getting big into. But it does take a while to reopen around here when something happens, especially something like this is a weird storm. We don't usually when it's a certain amount cold here, if it's below about 22, 23 degrees, it can't snow. It's too cold. But this storm, it was like 17 when it happened. So, it's odd in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I did see the plows out today. They were hanging around. So I'm assuming part of the thing is that they were going to go to work at some point in time trying to move some of this stuff as it softens up a little bit, because the temperatures you're getting, in the 30 to 33, 34 degree range, depending on where you are, maybe a little higher. And so that gives them a chance.
Bright sunny on the black roads.
Helps. So they might be able to push it out of the way. But part of that too is that because with all this traffic that we have, the roads can be kind of narrow in some places.
Right.
So as a result of this, trying to fit all the traffic onto the roads, probably as a reference even to your 300-year-old road system, is that where you put the snow. You
Yeah.
put it on the sidewalks if you can get it there. And so it's just, it's a tricky thing. I go to the gym early in the morning and it's dark, and I have to try to use my memory saying, okay, this street is still, this lane will be good until this intersection, and then I better, I'll need to shift over because it's blocked for like 10 or 20 feet, and then I can get back in. I did something. I went out on Sunday to go over to Gaithersburg, another part of Gaithersburg, Kentlands area, and I'm driving. Everything's fine, and I hit Great Seneca Highway, and I'm like, the traffic is just totally stopped, and I'm like, what in the heck's going on? So finally, as we inched our way up there, what I had done is that the county was trying to unblock the lanes and the roads and the intersections. So they had front end loader, they had a dump truck there, basically taking the snow away. But in order to do that, they had to close off lanes and all this. It was like, okay, it's Sunday. I kind of understand that, but I'm like, I might be late to where I'm going.
Yeah, that's right.
And I came back, and it was probably even worse because they had moved, but then they had like shut off like entire. You couldn't go this direction or that direction at all, and I'm like, oh, these people are going. They're just this. I'm glad I'm going home.
I hear you. And the other one is handicap spaces. So when this happens, they're usually empty, right? So the snow gets dumped into handicap space, like the one outside my house. There's there's the handicap space is under 10, 15 inches of snow, right? Because they pushed it all in there.
Right. Yeah. If you go out shopping, those snow mounds are not going anywhere anytime soon yet.
Could be well into April before all that.
They're slowly melting, and we got a little bit, and so it's no fun. My wife is coming back from Utah, and so I elected not to go with her on this trip, and then she's just like, I haven't really felt like wearing a jacket. The temperatures have been 50 to 55 degrees during the day over there, which is a problem, actually. This is not a good sign for Utah because Utah needs the snow. They basically had almost no snow. It's bad for the ski resorts, but it's going to be bad for their summer because they count on that melt off, that whole thing.
Their water, that's right.
Provide them water, throughout the rest of the year, and they're not getting it. So this is, I'm like, I'd be happy if we could find a way to ship that over. Too bad the weather system hit here and not over there for the purposes of water. Because we don't really need all that we got, and we're still kind of muddling through a lot of this stuff. But I did learn how well rock salt really works when you apply it. It's good stuff.
It is. It eats everything in its path.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't know what it's going to do to my driveway, but then again, I'm going to be spending, I'm probably going to redo my driveway and start all over again because it's 20-something years old, and I'm thinking like, how many times can I seal this driveway? I probably need to replace this sucker. Too many cracks. Joys of home ownership.
That's right.
Oh, I tell you, just one thing after another. All right. So we're thawing out a little bit. Today is National Girls and Women in Sports Day. That's good.
Yeah, good year for that one. There's a case before the Supreme Court now, whether it's going to be legal for states to prohibit boys from playing in girls' sports. I'm kind of in this business. I coached girls basketball. I've joked with various boys, brothers of players and whatnot, if they could just identify for a little while. No one's taken me up on it yet. But like part of me says, I hope that happens, right? Because then you can see the absurdity of it, right? Because like you would go in and these teams would be all like accepting until we were 25 points ahead because the boy was dominating the game. And then they wouldn't be accepting anymore. They would say we cheated, right? Which we would have cheated, right? So it's not fair. It's like people say that, if you just work hard enough and this and that and the other, it's not like that. It's like, my experience with this is basketball, and we've done this. We've played against boys. We played against some boys this year, and but we chose to do it, right? And we did it in a scrimmage type of situation where we don't really care about winning or losing, right? We're just playing for the experience. But what happens is, especially in youth basketball, and anybody who watches youth basketball is going to know that I'm right about this. But a lot of the time is spent, two people have their hands on the ball and they're pulling to get the ball, right? And the ref does that a lot. He does that 15 times a game. Okay. So to stop play and, give the ball to one team or the other, right? So boy, if you lose every one of those exchanges, it's hard to win the game. If you go up for a rebound and I have my two hands on it and you have your two hands on it, and you're a boy and I'm a girl, you win. I could have you boxed out good and all that. You win that battle, right? Just on pure strength, and there's nothing I can do about it. So it's not fair. And there's nothing the boys who want to be girls can do to fix that, right? They're going to have that advantage whether they like it or not. And so I mean, we made sports for girls, right? I've done a lot of writing and studying on Title IX and how it came to be and so forth. And it was a good thing because we were not ever going to give girls equal opportunity unless we were forced to do it, right? And that's a lot of the story of America, right? They don't give you equal opportunity until they're forced to do it. So they got forced to do it, and now you have this whole ecosystem of girls sports and girls heroes and people that girls can look up to and so forth, that wasn't there before. And so you're getting girls who are smarter and more self-assured and so forth that go through these things. And, it's wildly beneficial. I recommend to parents, try it. Your kid's don't worry about your kid not being good, because there are places in all this stuff, especially with a sport like basketball, where it's kind of eminently scalable, for instance, in just McLean, where I coach, right? We have a B house league, an A house. So that's 4 teams of 7th grader, the 2 teams plus 2 leagues full of 7th graders, right? Or 5th graders, whatever, grade you have, right? So, that's a lot of opportunities. And house leagues, they take whoever signs up. So you can't get cut. So go try it. Go put your daughter in that situation. Let her try to figure her way out of trouble and stand up to, bullying, and stand up to, people that are stronger than them, and figure out how to be smarter and so forth to get around them and so forth. And, there's just so much growth that comes from it. And, so I hope it's not destroyed. I hope the courts back common sense here and do it, and save girl sports.
Yeah. I mean, you've got a daughter. I have a daughter. I've got granddaughters. I mean, they're all benefiting by that. My daughter surprised me by even wanting to play high school sports. It's nothing that she showed any inclination for when she was younger, and she took up tennis because of my grandfather, my father, her grandfather, put her in, got her lessons and stuff like that. She wasn't going to be, she wasn't good enough really, she knew it too. She couldn't really do singles, but she could play doubles, and she was fine. And they won plenty of matches in her time. And then she also played some field hockey or lacrosse. Because it was lacrosse she played. So, she enjoyed the time there because there was some camaraderie there, and
right.
She made some good friends. And I thought that was all well. It just, I was kind of nonplussed. I didn't worry about, equal rights, men's rights, boys' rights, girls' rights. I mean, this was a situation. I mean, the high school sports and things like that had developed over the years to become, something that was very beneficial to the girls. So, yeah, and like you said, you don't have to be good. I mean, a lot of the kids grow up in those little rec leagues where they're absolutely terrible. All they do is just run around. If they're playing soccer, they just run around. But it doesn't matter. They're enjoying themselves. They're having fun.
Yeah, it's like MK's teams. She coaches at Falls Church High School, and most of the girls in their program have never played before. right? So they all got to high school. Basketball is a specialized sport, and I'm out here coaching AAU all these years, right? All these kids that I coach, they show up at high school with 400, 500 games of real basketball, competitive basketball experience, right? And these girls showed up with none. Okay, and they're on the teams and they're playing, and if they play those girls that have all that experience, they don't usually win, right? But they can. But the thing is, girls with no experience, they just said, I'm an athlete, I'm gonna go try it, are making teams all over the place.
Yeah, that is true. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to the news. So start off with this Texas Senate race. I guess it was Texas Senate. So a district that Trump carried by 17 points. The Democrat won. I mean, this is a special election. They'll face, there'll be the general election, coming up in November. So they'll have a rematch then. But this adds to yet another string of losses by the Republicans, kind of here in this off-year election. Anti-Trump sentiment. I think,
how long have we been talking about special Republicans having special problems in special elections?
Well, they lose a lot of them. They lose a lot of them.
They don't pay enough attention, and it's not a big enough deal. There's a couple of things. The other thing is, like, the person who won that race will never actually sit in the Texas legislature, right? Part of what happened here is, this election goes, this person will be replaced in November. The Texas legislature won't meet again until next January. So, in November, the Republican lady will be on the ballot with a bunch of other Republicans, and there'll be a lot of attention and focus on that election. There's a Senate race in Texas. So, they'll get enough people out at the ballot box to make sure that the Republican wins. So it's a whole lot less there than meets the eye.
I know, but here's something I always find is pretty, very, very Trumpian of Trump. He comes in with these late endorsements and stuff like that. Candidate loses, and he's like, I don't know who that person was. Yeah. Did I endorse that person? I don't know.
The endorsements are hilarious.
Yeah. It's like this selective amnesia when he's endorsed somebody that lost.
Yeah.
And it happens.
Well, I mean, it's been the case for most of the duration of since Trump came down the escalator that the Republicans, if he's not on the ballot, they're not in really good shape, right? I mean, people vote for Trump and they will vote for Republicans to help Trump. But when Trump's not, directly on the ballot, I think the one time he'll be able to defy this will be this November, because I think his plan is to nationalize it and to make it a referendum on him in November, and he thinks he can win that. And by then he may be able to.
Yeah, I just like his selective amnesia just cracks me up, because I can almost guarantee you every time this happens, he will do that. If he decides to jump in the race and that candidate loses, it's like, I don't know who was that. Did I endorse that person? Who is that person? Maybe he's a pretty good person, but I don't know anything about I don't know anything about him. I don't know anything about her. It's just, but the other side of that coin too for me is just that when I think about these elections and the the ties that the media has made to Trump, and Trump has endorsed a bunch of candidates and that have lost and whatever, it's just that I don't recollect the media getting on Democrats when Democrats have done the same kind of thing. They've, if say, endorsed a candidate in a special election, that candidate loses, even if the Democrat had carried, if the Democrat president had carried the district or whatever. Maybe there are not as many instances of those, but it does seem that this is kind of a Trump derangement syndrome issue, where the media is very hyper focused on Republican races as they're trying to get, they're trying to take the temperature and say, what is this going to say about the midterms? How is
any sign of a crack in the Trump coalition is, they can detect or they can make up or whatever is big news to them.
Yeah, I mean, the bigger problem really is just, what will the map look like after after all the court issues and the legislatures have decided to go and pass things. Virginia's trying to do their thing, but I guess they've been swatted down. Maryland came up with a with a map that basically it's a crazy map, and basically in order to take Andy Harris out, it's like, we're not even talking reasonable politics anymore. I mean, it's just gone far beyond that. And I see comments on social media. It's like, well, the Republicans in Texas did it. It's fine for Maryland or Virginia or California to do it. It's like, I don't even want anybody to, first, I don't want anybody to do this mid-cycle redistricting. And second, going back to what you said and what I have said for years, really, is just that you need kind of to take a computer program, and now we have AI, which we didn't have years ago, and just go through and draw the districts and keep them contiguous and tight, instead of this crazy stuff that the legislators do to basically gerrymander the heck out of everything. Then creates this other situation where everything has become overly politicized. I don't know. I mean, if you're a congressman now, it's like, are you going to have that same district? Once you get elected, is that going to be the same district you run in 2 years from now or 4 years from now? There's no guarantee. Right. At least you had a 10-year thing normally in the past, in most cases. But now it's like it's a free for all. It's crazy.
So in Virginia, they used to the congressional delegation would do it. They would get in a room and they would make the lines, draw the lines, and they would draw them with an eye towards self-preservation, right? But and you think about that, it sounds so dirty and backroom and everything, but the more I think about that, the more I think that's a pretty good system, because what happens is like, I live in Reston, which is 70% D. Okay, we were part of the 11th district, we were part of the 10th district, which is Republican, right? So when they changed it, the last time they changed it under this process, they put us in 11, which is now Waukesha, and it's a very liberal district, and they put people in like Chantilly and so forth that were in liberal and they were in 11, so they were in the liberal district. They put them in 10, so they put conservative voters in a conservative district, liberal voters in liberal districts, which does kind of reflect. I mean, I don't like the idea that Reston is for, we're for liberal stuff, but we are, to reflect the will of the people of Reston. You need to be ruling from the left, to reflect the will of the people. Sully district, Chantilly, that part of the world, you need to be on the right. So it kind of made that happen. So, and also, if you look at the population trend, from what I can tell in Virginia, the big cities are gaining and the rest of it is losing. So, it's going to become more of this anyway.
Yeah. I mean, and we saw I think you probably saw it too. I mean, the kind of the Census Bureau put out a report about net migration, kind of an interim thing, showing that once again, California and so these big blue states are still suffering, and then come the next, if this continues, come the next census, there's going to be another shift again, where they will
seats go from California to Texas.
Yeah,
California loses 4, Texas gains 4 under what they have right now.
I still think it would be a worthwhile experiment just to take somebody to take AI and figure out how to just run a program just to see what would happen if you run AI through every state and just base it on population and keep everything as contiguous as possible. There are some states, I mean, it's hard to do things easily. I mean, if you're in Seattle, you've got a lot of interesting situations there. I think any place that you've got water and an island that you're trying to draw in, and all
I mean, you just move farther inland. That's all calculable.
Yeah. So, but you do that and just see what happens, because the other part of that is just that you make it so that it's basically race blind, right? Because this is the other and just see what happens. Right.
That's why, like, if this Calais v. Louisiana case comes out, right, and which the Supreme Court's going to do something about that, they need to do something about it quick, because it's going to affect a lot of elections all over the country. So a lot of states, should be able to redraw maps based on that, because they've drawn maps, like Louisiana. there's a district that runs from Shreveport to Baton Rouge, right? That's 235 miles, okay, of diagonal. And it's basically a big diagonal, it's like a flat circle, there's very, very little width to achieve going 235 miles in the same, congressional district, right? And it's just to achieve, it was just to create a black seat. And if they, and you have people in the races down there because of this, right? That they're going to want to be in a different race if, it changes. So, and I think Louisiana's map's ready to go if they win on Calais. So, but other states need to be thinking about this too, because, very quickly it's going to come at you that your districts are not fair or unnecessarily uncontiguous and so forth, and it needs to be redone. So, I hope people are paying attention, because, they really can't wait much longer to make that ruling.
Yeah, look, I mean, Democrats always talk about, I mean, they always preach, from the pulpit of racism, everything's racist here. It's like,
that's because they're racist.
That's because they are, exactly.
That's,
and
that's why that's all they think about, is because it's all they think about.
Yeah, and to me, when you start drawing districts based on race to make sure that a person of a specific race gets that seat, and it tends to lean to the Democrats' benefit, then who's the racist?
Right.
Right. You've injected racism into a system, so make it race blind and see what happens. But I think the Democrats are afraid of that. I think they're afraid that if that happened, they wouldn't. But the law doesn't prevent someone if there is an area where, say, AI drew a majority, of blacks in a district. Nothing prevents someone from running there, because you don't have to live in the district to run in the district. So that would, they could do that. It happens all the time, and then you could just do that. I have no idea what the configuration would be. I'd have, on race or anything like that. But I think, we need a fair system instead of all this, all these machinations. And and I think, before we seemed to do just fine with the system. But now we're seeing the far left and all these other things get in here and start mucking up the whole thing. And so now, conservatives fight back. And I think, drawing districts has become a brutal battle, has become very heavily politicized, where it's not just preservation. It's like, we want the whole thing.
Right. Right. And, Trump has brought up in the last week or so, he's talked about federalizing elections. Right. And, everybody shakes their head, but, it may be time to think about some of this being federalized, right? Some of the standards being established that you have to meet, on federal elections. Right. I guess you don't care who they elect in their states, but for federal elections. Right. And it's hard to, and I think you also can make the case that it's hard to hold, because most federal election days are also state election days. Right. It's kind of hard to hold, to tell me that you're complying with the federal law and the weaker state laws at the same time. Right. You're letting people in to vote, non-citizens and whatnot, to vote in state elections. You're probably letting them, you're not going to give them a ballot that doesn't include the federal candidates. Right. That's not, no one's doing that. They could, I guess, but no one is. So then you probably have lawsuits about that. So you still have the problem of people who should not be voting are getting to vote. And I think that's what Republicans are zeroed in on. That's why they want the SAVE Act passed and so forth. Which doesn't look like it's going to happen, to try to even that up, to try to make it where, the people get what they voted for.
Yeah, I mean, I was looking at, because the government now requires, they've required that you to have real ID to get on an airplane, or if you don't have real ID, I guess still at this point in time, you're going to have to pay like $45 or whatever. I mean, real ID, it doesn't prove that you're a citizen, but it does, because of the documentation you have to provide. It is some documentation that says that at the time you provide the documentation, you're here lawfully, right? So, I kind of wonder. I keep thinking in the back of my mind, thinking, well, it'd be nice if if that was a minimum requirement that everybody who votes has real ID, right? Has some kind of real ID. They present that, um, and go along with that. I mean, I don't even have a problem to a large degree of, you put a couple of ICE guys, that can't do anything but just kind of observe, in general, unless they spot somebody. But if you put some ICE, agents outside a few polling places, that would probably deter the illegals.
Illegal voting, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you could do things like that, which obviously the liberals would have a big cow about,
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff, and you have there's a lot of issues with that, but we after seeing this Pew poll where 85% of whites want photo ID, 82% of Latinos, and 76% of blacks are in favor of photo ID for voting. It's like, I think this is kind of signaling that something has to be done. I don't like Trump and his continual harping on 2020 and the stolen election stuff. We're almost 60. We're 5 years plus. It's 2026. There's bigger fish to fry than to worry about that issue right now. And but you can
be
make
that
it
as may, they have proven in the last week or so that Georgia was Trump.
It doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter anymore.
Well, yes and no.
Biden,
We're not going to undo.
Biden served his term, and that was that.
Biden's term is over. That's true, and you're not going to undo his.
Right.
Count the bills he signed as not really true or whatever. But if you're going to stop it again, you got to find the people who did it, and you got to shut down the system, and you got to put those people in prison, right? Or every election will be like this, right? We'll be arguing about this stuff from now on, unless it's stopped now and people go to prison, because these are deterrable criminals. If Democrats see people actually 7, 10, 12-year prison terms out of this, you won't see it happening next time, right? Because hey, I'm not going to prison over this. We got to come up with something else, right? Because they don't, these people, they don't put their money where their mouth is. But, so it is important that it get tracked down and exposed and prosecuted. You're not going to, and overturning Georgia does not give Trump the presidency, right? It just gives Trump Georgia, right? You would still need, I think, one more state to actually get him over the limit. So, but it is important that the records show it. And it is important that the people involved go to prison, including, I think, there are 2 heroes that were, I think those ladies are going to end up in some serious trouble.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem of actually, prosecuting legitimate, election fraud. I mean, we have to end any of that. One fraudulent vote is one too many for me. But here we are, as I said, we're 2026. Trump is still, talking about 2020. He's got the power. He can do all this if he wants to, and obviously he is. But there are other things for him to work on besides that at this point in time. I mean, that shouldn't be as high on his agenda right now as some other things that he needs to fix and get going and doing. In the limited time he's got left in office. He can have people work on that. Whatever, that's fine.
Right. And that's what he said. But the thing is that, though, it's the same thing as the immigration, though. If the immigration people, they say, well, these guys, some of these people, they've been here 20 years and they've worked hard, kept their head down, they got in any trouble. Why are you kicking them out? If you start saying that, hey, it happened long enough ago, we're not going to prosecute stuff, then you're going to get a lot more corruption. You're not, if you're not going to actually enforce your laws when they've been broken, then you're going to get more law breaking. You're going to get less trust in government, less trust in societal norms, because anything goes. Like you didn't do anything about it last time, so why do you care this time? And that's why, like we were talking about this the other day, it's a good thing that COVID was not really a wipeout disease. I mean, half the people who died from it were 85 or older, 3/4 were 78 or older, I think, or something like that. So it hurt the old people, but if it had been a true threat to wiping out mankind would have been wiped out because of all the corruption involved, right? The rules did not always apply. Like it was a big danger to go to church during COVID, right? But it was not a danger to go to George Floyd protests during COVID. Explain that one to me, right? We were so corrupt. If we truly had a deadly threat to all of humanity, worthy of closing the schools and the workplaces for 2 years, then we wouldn't have had George Floyd riots be allowed, right? So you could tell it was politicized. Okay, we didn't follow the law. So what came out of that? Lack of respect for the law, right? Lack of respect on all sides for the law. It's because if you don't respect it, if you don't make people follow it, you'll be dealing with that problem alone, from now on.
Yeah, well, I mean, Minneapolis is obviously a center flashpoint for a lot of this. It's like, why does everything go back to Minneapolis? The George Floyd, all this ICE stuff.
Because they've let it happen. That's a perfect example, right?
Right.
The governor's office let the Somalis steal billions of dollars. They said, hey, it makes you guys happy. We're just not going to look that way. Okay, so the Somalis, they look at it and they say, okay, they're corrupt like all the other government people we've ever dealt with in our lives. And so we'll just take all the money we need, right? And that's what they did.
What's funny? I don't know if you saw this clip from Jasmine Crockett about Biden. I mean, she was talking about PPP loans, and she says, "Oh, there was so much corruption because of the PPP loans and everything under Biden." I'm like, okay, ding.
Right.
I don't know. It's kind of funny. I mean, it's Jasmine Crockett of all people, but you just see these things going on here, and I saw a story about I guess the ICE agents are going to be carrying body cameras, and I'm like, yeah, I mean, police forces have been using that. If they're basically
kind of backfired on the left.
Yeah. Yeah.
Remember the one in I think it was like Columbus. Lady's got a knife and she's just about to harpoon some woman from behind, and the cop shoots her. He sees her like she's got the knife up in the air, and he shoots her. And all the leftists came out and wanted to go after the cop. If he'd have waited one more second, an innocent person would have been dead, right? He had to do it right then. And so I predicted at the time, I said, all these liberal people I know were like, they're going to get that cop, make an example out of him. I'm like, that cop's not going to be charged. And he wasn't. All right. But that's the thing. They want to raise hell about that. They want to protest that. Right. What's the cop supposed to do?
Yeah. I think you find out that the body cameras
worked against them.
Right. They don't help the liberal cause.
Yeah.
You find that the cops, wind up being justified in their actions more than not because of those body cameras.
That's right.
And so it's actually in their best. That's why I think it's a good idea for the ICE agents to carry. They should have probably done that long ago. Probably could have avoided some of this some of the stuff that happened in Minneapolis and all the furor, because it whipped up so many people. I mean, people that I know, but though I don't know, I really don't know, Brian, what is wrong with this millennial Gen Z, the generation, where my kids age and stuff like that. So I see people, daughters, kids, sons and daughters of people that I know and I respect, and they post this outrageous, outlandish stuff because they have drunk the Kool-Aid of the left on these issues. And it's just like, you're not taking everything into perspective here at all. You're just following because you see all this and you think this is the case, but it's not necessarily the case. And I'm like, it's too bad. I mean, I really like these people, but it really annoys the heck out of me.
Yeah. So all right. So where did they get their information?
Yeah.
I mean, they Apple News, Google News on their phones,
Facebook.
Right. But a lot of it's the news apps, right, on their phone.
Apps, right.
Right. So those news apps, like that's one thing MRC is studying this now, is they never put conservative news in those news apps. It's like one of them we did was 558 to 1. So the next month, whoever, I think it was Apple, was 558 to 1. So the next month they determined to approve, it was 609 to 0. No conservative news. The one they had they had something that was like Daily Telegraph and it was behind the paywall. Then a whole month they have one thing from the Examiner, one thing. Okay, so Examiner, New York Post. Did you know there's a California Post now? It's a branch of the New York Post.
Wow.
That could get really interesting. But so those people, that generation that you're talking about, they don't really have access to conservative news. I mean, you got to seek it out. It's findable if you go look for it. But the people who are guard the gatekeepers of what news they see are blacking them out from anything but leftist news.
Yeah, that's good because I mean I have an iPhone and I'm an Apple guy and so I have Apple News and I scroll through that. I mean I look at that thing every day, but it's really kind of hot garbage for the most part. There's the news,
but they don't know. It's all you got. You don't know.
The news section is, as you say, I mean, it's very liberally tinted. And then if you scroll down for other stuff, there's just a lot of like clickbait.
Yeah.
As you go through the whole thing.
Yeah, garbage.
But it's kind of a mess, and yet they have people paying for that. But so that on top of that, I mean, it's too bad. But that's what they get, right?
Right. That's why like CNN has basically 500,000 viewers in their prime time, something like that. It's just minuscule audience. You couldn't survive on that audience, but they get 330 million clicks a month on their website because of these aggregators, because the CNN, New York Times are there. That's their featured people, right? So most of the news these people get. I'll give you an example. My daughter, I keep talking about my daughter, but so the Renee Good thing happens, right? And she comes to me and she's like, that guy, she didn't hit the guy. He wasn't in front of the car. So like I pulled out video that shows the guy sliding off the end of the car. I mean, it's just clear as day, right? So that's not true. I'm like, what do you mean it's not true? There it is on the video. She goes, well, I haven't seen that video. I'm like, videos you haven't seen are not by definition untrue, right? Like all she'd ever seen is the one from behind the car, which doesn't really show you anything, right? The ones that where he's in front of the car and you can see her gun it right into him, and like maybe she didn't mean to hit him, but if you gun your car right at a cop, you're going to get shot every single time, right? And no one's going to argue about it. So within like I showed her 2 or 3 more, and she's like, okay, I didn't know about any of this, right? And she's out seeking information, right? But all the information she got was none of this happened, and like here's the video, it sure did happen.
Yeah, the other thing that I think that gets lost in all of these things, whether it's Minnesota, or anywhere else, is just that exactly what gives you the right to confront law enforcement like that in any form is like once you start confronting them, all bets are off at that point. I mean, you can have a peaceful protest. You can be behind a police line or whatever. You can you can have your signs. You can do that. I don't have a problem with that. But once you start, kind of getting in their face and you start to present a physical threat to them, that changes the whole narrative. But the left completely ignores that. They see that kind of thing as an extension of civil rights, that everybody has a right to confront police forces, law enforcement. It's like, no, you don't.
No, you don't.
You absolutely do not have that right. And and they have absolutely every right to protect themselves and defend themselves. So sorry, I'm sad that these events have occurred in Minneapolis, but these people kind of brought it on themselves by their
my friend goes, ICE needs to learn about the golden rule. I'm like, the people ICE got involved with there need to learn the golden rule. How did Alex Petty think he was going to be treated doing what he did? Right? I mean, what did he think they were going to pin a medal on him?
So did she. If he wasn't going to use his weapon, that the thing is like, why are you bringing this weapon to a protest? Okay, it's like
did you think you were going to have to shoot? You're the
At that
threat. You're the one
at that very
causing trouble.
point, you've already escalated the situation.
Yeah,
You can't carry a firearm to something like that. I mean, it's like, what's law enforcement supposed to think? I mean,
that's right.
this is not, so, I just can't have a lot of sympathy for the people that, that died, as unfortunate as it is, because they created a situation which kind of allowed law enforcement to do this, but law enforcement had to protect themselves. So I don't know. It's just, it's unfortunate, but it is what it is. Couple more things too. So now we have the Clintons have agreed to testify before Congress or give their depositions relating to the Epstein.
Is that where we are now? Because it keeps going
Yeah,
back.
they've agreed. They've agreed to
Okay.
do this, and I'm not sure what we're going to get out of this.
Yeah, see, that's another one. Is like, put other people on that one. I guess we all have a little salacious interest in what they would say, but I can read a 3-paragraph recap of that one and be just fine. That's not. I'm not building my life around Bill and Hill testifying over stuff that happened 20 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, and Bill and Hillary are they're not the political forces or influencers they used to be.
Yeah, yeah, that's one of those. Like all these things is like, let's get the Epstein files out. All the leftists would say, if Bill Clinton's in it, just throw him on the pile too, right? So it's like, Bill had to think that was heartwarming, but all that did for you, and like you guys are ready to put me under the bus immediately, but it's true though. They're not. The Democrat Party is entirely willing to sacrifice the Clintons at this point. They don't see them as an asset at all. So that's a good deal to them. If you could get Trump, and it cost you Clinton, they don't care about that at all. But their problem is, they think getting Clinton will get them Trump, and that's not true. Trump didn't do what Clinton did. Trump didn't do this, right? He didn't do it. He knew these people, but he didn't do it. And as long as they can spend all the time they want trying to prove it, they never, ever, ever will.
Yeah, and look, it makes them look bipartisan, right? It makes look, we're in favor of the Clintons testifying.
We're just for justice.
Yeah, we need to get to the bottom of this, but
let's bust Reid Hoffman. Then he was definitely there. There's all kind of witnesses saying stuff about him. Wait a minute now. That's a lot of money.
Well, I mean, the politicians that are really shaking in their boots are the ones in the UK, right? I mean, right. They're deep into this stuff. There's like,
that's right. They dove in head first, and their society is much more coarse than ours, right? They have nude pictures in the newspapers and all kind of stuff, right? And their humor is more coarse. Their TV standards are lower and whatnot, but sexual scandal is a lot more poisonous to your political career there than it is here. If we found out Trump had some other girlfriend on the side, what are we really going to do? Like we did, Clinton had constant bimbo eruptions when he was in the White House. What did we really do? They tried to impeach him over lying about something, and it was proved dumb, right? It didn't work and it looked dumb. So it's like, it's weird. It's like they're a lot, their discourse is a lot worse than ours, but they punish the politicians a lot harder.
All right. Something that wasn't on the list because it came up kind of late on me was I just saw the story before it came on, which is that the Washington Post is restructuring. They're going to lay off 300 journalists. This is a big one. I mean, this is a huge cut. There's international news is going to be shrunk, if not almost eliminated. Sports is going to be virtually eliminated, which is interesting in a sports town in the sense of we've got major league sports in our town, and you're taking this out, this venerable paper. The paper's been around forever. It's covered all these teams forever, and you're telling them that you may not have much, if anything, of a sports department. Wow, right. I mean, so
wow,
it's just
my profession is getting banged, man.
No, but I mean, it's apparently Jeff Bezos issued an order to make these cutbacks. I mean, it shows too. I think this is probably a financial decision too, that they are just, he is just not willing to lose any more money on the paper itself. He's trying to find a way, to cut it down to the point where it doesn't lose as much money. And you kind of begin to wonder though. I mean, you take a cut like this, there's something like what 800 some journalists, and they're going to take 300 out of there. That's eviscerating a lot of the paper. What's the future of the Washington Post with this? And is this is this the last of the cuts? I mean,
right. And who covers those teams?
Right.
The Nats, the Wizards, the Wizards kind of on the verge, maybe a couple of years from now, they could be a 500 team.
Yeah.
Who will cover that? Who will go to those games?
Right. And they're cutting back on local coverage. I mean, when I used to read the physical paper, I mean, I would go through it from page 1 to the last page to the last section, and I would flip through just about everything. So, and the Metro section, and I went through that. I went through the style section, the sports, all of that stuff. And you're basically eviscerating, limiting a lot of that stuff. There's actually a lot of decent news that needs to come out, that comes out of those sections. You don't always have to agree with it, but there's reporting that you would probably not get otherwise, and so there's going to be stuff that's going to be left behind as a result of that. So I don't know. It's newspapers. I mean, it's still a rough business, right? It's hard to make money. I have my aside on this, which is kind of, so I've had this subscription to the Wall Street Journal for years, but I noticed that what they started doing at some point in time is that if I was away, I could suspend the paper. But because the paper was wrapped into a digital bundle and everything, this is all one price. You could buy a digital bundle, or you could buy the digital and the paper. But even though I wasn't home and wasn't getting the paper, I wasn't getting any credit for not receiving the paper. So I was paying for this thing no matter what I was doing. But I cut our subscription because my wife she was tired of the liberal politics of the news section. So I said, fine, we can do that for a while.
Yeah, news section really has gone hard left.
Yeah, and if they offer me a good deal, if they offer me like 50% off, I might come back or whatever. But the guy who delivers the paper, he's been delivering my paper for 3 weeks free. I don't get all the digital access, but I'm like, every morning I'm like, there's a paper in my driveway.
There it is. There it is again.
I'm getting what the advertising industry would call make good, right? I'm basically getting the paper that I paid for when I was on vacation, that I suspended. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to let this ride as long as I can.
I take the Dead Tree Post, and if they're not going to have sports, or they're not going to put out, like, one of the most valuable things in the paper to me is the sports TV listings, like, what's on, what you can watch on TV. And you really can't get that. I mean, you can scroll through that thing on the TV, which is, really inaccessible.
It's annoying.
but this is it's there. It's synopsized for you. It's really beautiful. But if they're not going to do that, then, I can really start thinking about doing without the print Washington Post.
For which I'm sure Lori won't complain.
She won't complain because it's like a little, thing that she has to handle. So like it'd be a big hassle off her plate, and she would not argue.
All right. So last few things that I want to kind of just quickly run through. Partial government shutdown has ended. There's still some debate, I guess, about DHS funding. We talked last week about defund whatever. But now my only complaint now would be is that the funding would affect TSA, okay? And I'm concerned only about that because, like, I don't want anything affecting TSA that affects when I have to fly, and I'll be flying next month. It's like, don't muck this up so that I don't have the TSA agents, when I need to fly and go see my grandchildren in March. Okay. Just don't muck that up.
After that. Well, I think it's, one of the things I'm kind of disappointed in Trump about is, the right answer on TSA is to end it, right? Is to go back to private contractors, what they had before. They didn't. 9/11 did not happen because the people guarding the gate missed anything. Right? You can't blame them. So
I mean,
it's like just wipe this out. It's all these government employees, all these pensions, all this health care you have to be paying for. Just pay a contractor and let them do it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, in a post 9/11 world now, we've learned a lot of things. I think there are companies out there, contractors, that can give more appropriate training to agents and have them there, have their people staff airports around the country that would be as secure, if not more secure, than we have today. Because TSA still flubs, right? They still flub it. Things still get through that shouldn't get through, and stuff like that. And I mean, there was some video of some guy who I think he bolted through a TSA thing, kind of just trucked or tried to truck a TSA agent, and some passenger who's already had passed through, he actually tackled the guy. It's like, I don't understand. I didn't read the full story to find out what the guy was doing, but that guy was nuts. Okay. It's like, how far, you're in the TSA area. How far do you think you're going to get by trying to run through TSA?
Yeah. You're out running that two-way,
Yeah.
walkie-talkie.
It didn't make any sense to me at all. Anyway, so I'm glad that we've got that behind us for now. And the DHS thing, but like I said, my only thing is, just make sure I have the people I need when I fly out to Indiana in March. So I'll take that very personally. All right, a few other really quick things. Court just ruled the other day that Montgomery County can continue with their transgender pronouns. There was a Christian teacher who had sued, that saying that
she was demoted or something for not pronouncing a kid or whatever.
Right. So she lost this case. I guess you could probably appeal this case. I'm not quite sure exactly, how far she can go with this. So that I don't know. Montgomery County is just, there are probably other counties that are like this around the school systems around the country, but Montgomery County has just gone so far overboard with LGBTQ and transgender stuff. It's just kind of sickening to me. I'm not trying to take anything away from these people, but the protections they have granted these classes is ridiculous. Is that they are well above protection than most ordinary people. They're not.
That's right. And the funny thing about that one is that they always back the Muslims, and whatever the Muslims before, but the Muslims oppose them on this one. It's different politics.
Yeah. There's a Melania movie, $7 million. I mean, Amazon or Netflix, who is it spent the money anyway? $75 million spent on production and marketing. I don't think they're going to make that back, but people may watch it streaming after it kind of meanders through the theater.
Yeah, I figured that it's more of a streaming than a theater deal.
I have zero interest in watching it, whether or not it was in a theater or streaming. So,
I I probably won't watch it either. I thought the press conference was interesting because Trump is the star of every day of his life. Like some days you're the star of your life, and some days you're going wherever your wife tells you to go, right? You're shopping at Costco or whatever. So, but he's always the star. He's always out there in front of everybody. But he was trying to get out of the spotlight, and he was standing like this weird physical distance apart from her to like be out of the camera shot and so forth. And he was like leaning back, like, don't ask me a question, and it's just like you could tell he's like he was legitimately trying to like help his wife and put her forth and let her have her day in the sun and whatnot. But it was very funny to watch. He's like he was uncomfortable with it. He's like, I gotta try to do this, whatever it takes, So I think about all the times like your wife and my wife too both had to like stand there and watch us go through whatever we go through.
All right. Next up is just kind of a sad note here for rest in peace to Damon Wilson. I bring that up because the old Sanford and Son, who I think I probably watched just about every episode growing up of Sanford and Son. a program that you cannot produce today, like
Nope.
many programs in my youth and your youth.
That's right. That's right.
The Jeffersons, All in the
Yeah,
Family.
my dad loved it, and we watched it all the time too.
Yeah, it was great. I mean,
Yeah, it was a great show, and he was the son.
yeah, he
Devon
was the
Wilson, he was
son.
Lamont,
He was the son. Yeah, he was
and
the son.
he was always kind of pained at whatever thing Fred was into at the time. And he after that he became a preacher. He was a preacher after he was an actor. So he turned to God, tried to help others.
Another show you probably couldn't produce is Chico and the Man.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Just now it'd have to be Latinx and the Man or something.
Yeah, Chico and the Man. That's right. That one wouldn't go at all, would it?
Doesn't quite roll off the tongue. All right, and the last bit is to finish off with some sports. So Lindsay Vonn, at what? She's 41. She's going to ski in the Olympics, and then she ruptured her Achilles, skiing, kind of on her last ski runs, I guess, before the Olympics. But she's announcing she's working overtime with her trainers, and she's going to be ready to go on Sunday apparently, and that she's working on it. It's like that's pretty courageous. I mean, it is her left knee. I assume that. I guess maybe her right knee is what she rebuilt. It's probably where most of the pressure is. She puts when she's skiing, but still, a ruptured Achilles is nothing to make light of in this case. And she's 41 years old, but this is probably her last gasp at an Olympics.
Right. I wouldn't walk off from my last chance at it. On those circumstances. The other thing is, she has learned to ski when you can't trust your knees and ankles, right? That's you got to try to change what you do so you don't get into situations where you're putting them on an island and trusting them. So I think she's as prepared for it as anybody on earth could be to do this. So, and I wish her all the luck.
And then finally, the Super Bowl. This must go over well in your household with Lori, because I mean, the Mariners had a great run this year, and now you've got the Seahawks in there with Sam Darnold, who was all but written off several years ago and has completely turned around his career, to the young Drake May. Will he be the second coming of Tom Brady? Who knows? Or is it a 1-year deal? But the turnaround for the Patriots has been nothing short of remarkable, and the Seahawks just fight through there. It's like, finally, kind of playoffs without the Chiefs. It's kind of refreshing actually to see what other teams can do.
Yeah, and the Seahawks, their record, they weren't at the depths the Patriots were, but they weren't really close to being a title team, and then so they made a pretty big jump too.
Yeah,
and and Vrabel appears to be able to wave the magic wand and get things going. I'm happy for him. I look for it to be an exciting game, and of course we will be rooting for the old Seahawks over here.
All right. Well, I'll be doing what I normally do on Super Bowl Sunday, just like every other football Sunday, is watch highlights later on, because I've been boycotting the NFL since Colin Kaepernick, took a knee. I was thinking, like, the only time I think I have watched any live NFL was when I was in the waiting room when Spencer was in the hospital a couple of years ago, and the TV was on, and it was the Cardinals versus the Redskins. And I watched that for whatever time I was in there. So that was about it. So, my NFL viewing is basically at zero, and I will keep it up. Thank you, Colin Kaepernick. You have torn me away from the NFL, which I used to be glued to the TV. So anyway, with that, that's the end of the program. So everybody, thank you for joining us today. Please, as always, stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America. And we will see you again next week.